Hi guys. Tonight we're diving into a tangled, magical mess full of regret, wild transformations, and, believe it or not, a talking deer who calls you his brother. You're in for a world where every step could lead to a curse, and every relative has a secret too weird to confess at dinner. Picture yourself crossing ancient deserts under a milky violet sky, torchlight flickering on ruined walls as the wind whispers secrets only madmen hear. But don't get too comfortable. You're about to make some choices that'll get people turned into dogs, women into smoke, and someone you love into venison. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. I'm always curious who's joining these strange little bedtime rides. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are a merchant, not the kind who haggles for silks or sharpens knives in alleyways. You were once rich, respected, and just a tiny bit smug, until the events that turned your life into bedtime legend. You trudge beside a great, golden stag with wise eyes and a tone far too sarcastic for an herbivore. He keeps calling you brother, which would be weirder if he hadn't once been your actual brother. It began years ago. You and two brothers inherited your father's fortune. 3 equal shares, 3 households, but only yours grew larger. Why? Because you saved, you planned, and, okay, maybe you hoarded like a dragon with a bank account. Your brothers? Not so much. They spent their wealth on questionable ships, shady friends, and one camel race too many. And because sibling guilt is a powerful drug, you welcomed them back into your home after they lost everything. Yes, both of them, into your peaceful villa with its lemon garden and fountain that smelled faintly of nutmeg. You housed them, clothed them, even fed their pet peacocks. And they repaid you the way family sometimes does, by being terrible in new and creative ways. You weren't naive. Well, not that naive. You knew jealousy when it walked through your door and asked for more lamb stew. You watched your brothers eye your wealth, like vultures circling a sleepy gazelle. But still, blood is blood, and you loved them in that confused, nostalgic way. You love old songs that kind of ruined your life. One day, in the far wing of your home, a part your brothers weren't allowed to enter, you opened a carved cedar chest. Inside was gold, sure, but more importantly, the record of your merchant journeys, a hand-drawn map of the trade routes, and a bottle of perfume made from crushed moonflowers. Priceless things. So you locked the chest and, like an amateur in a horror story, told your wife, never open this. She didn't wait a week. Historical fun fact here. In medieval Middle Eastern households, it wasn't uncommon for women to manage entire estates while the men were off getting lost in deserts or arguments. Your wife? She took that authority and added a dash of soap opera mischief. One morning, you returned home early from the souk, arms full of dates and gossip, only to find your wife standing over the open chest. Her face froze. You asked, "What did you see?" She said, "Nothing," which always means everything. Later that night, your brothers vanished, and so did your gold. Now here's the thing. Historians still argue whether this next part actually reflects a broader cultural myth or just one man's extremely dramatic diary entry. But either way, it's where things veer from betrayal into bedtime weird. You chased your brothers across the country, literally, through markets, swamps, and one extremely judgmental innkeeper's wedding. Months passed. Seasons changed. Your beard grew majestic and unruly. Eventually, you caught up with them in the ruins of an old palace, surrounded by jackals and moonlight. They didn't run. They didn't deny it. They just offered you a drink, a rare vintage of pomegranate wine. They said, a peace gesture. You were tired. You were foolish. You drank. The stag walking beside you now. That's your eldest brother. The wine didn't just knock you out. It cursed both of them. Because what your wife saw in that chest wasn't just gold. It was a charm scroll, a sleeping relic, a remnant of the old magics, written by a scholar who may or may not have kissed a djinn on a dare. Fringe tidbit: some oral versions of this tale claim the scroll could also summon birds made of cinnamon. Yeah, no idea. When your wife opened the chest, the spell bound itself to your bloodline. The moment treachery occurred, the scroll activated. One brother became a stag. The other, well, you haven't told that part yet. He's around, sort of. So now you walk beside your dear brother, wandering from oasis to oasis, unraveling a curse neither of you fully understands. He can't remember what it's like to stand on two legs. You can't forget what it's like to have your trust stolen. Drop by drop, the night grows colder. Wind kicks up the sand in little eddies that skitter like dossiers across the dark. You share stories under the stars, leaning against a dune that smells faintly of saffron and firewood. Your brother nibbles on dry grass. You sip tea made from things that might be twigs or might be haunted. You both agree, revenge is overrated. But unraveling curses? That's a bedtime goal. You lie down, pulling your cloak over your face, and listen to the stag snore gently through his antlers. In the quiet hum of the desert, with the moon yawning overhead, you wonder, not for the first time, how many other travelers are walking beside brothers who used to be men. You wake up with sand in your ears and hoofprints on your cloak. Your brother, yes, the dear one, is already pacing like an impatient librarian, which is impressive for a hoofed animal. The sky is the dull pink of early morning, and somewhere in the distance, a caravan rattles over gravel, like a box of coins being shaken by fate. Are we telling the chess story now? He asks, snorting gently. Because that's the part where it gets embarrassing. For you, you sigh, stretch, pick cactus thorns out of your sleeve, and begin. Back before curses and animal transformations, you lived in a grand house with sun-washed walls and shadowed halls that smelled of cardamom and clean linen. The house was large, absurdly large if we're being honest. But your favorite place wasn't the garden or the terrace. It was the far storeroom. There, beneath a woven rug, and behind an oil jar, taller than a man, sat the forbidden chest. You told your wife not to open it, and to be fair, at first, she didn't. She simply hovered, asked what was in it, wondered aloud about its carvings, asked again, while pretending not to ask. Classic setup, really. You may as well have installed a glowing neon sign reading, "Mystery here. Please do not investigate." To her credit, your wife had spent years managing your home and handling accounts while you traipsed off, chasing silk merchants and arguing over saffron prices. She was capable, curious, and probably a little bored. So, one hot afternoon, she waited until you were out inspecting a shipment of almond oil. She found the key in your robe pocket. Yes, you really left it there. Genius move. And opened the chest. What did she find? Gold? Sure. But also a set of maps showing the locations of secret trade routes through the eastern mountains. Letters from a scholar of alchemy. And, wrapped in pale velvet, A scroll bound in serpent skin. She touched the scroll. It pulsed. That would have been a good time to stop. Maybe have a snack. Take up knitting. But no. She read aloud the first line. And history, your history, began to bend. Historical fact. Scrolls in medieval Islamic science often combined astronomy, medical advice, and mystical geometry. But this one? Definitely not for light reading. It had diagrams that made no anatomical sense, and glyphs that shimmered even in darkness. When she closed it, her eyes didn't feel like her own anymore. You came home to find her oddly calm. She served dinner, laughed at your jokes, didn't once mention the chest until 3 days later, when your brothers fell suddenly ill. At first, you blamed the soup, then the sun, then that weird cheese you all liked, but no one fully trusted. But when your youngest brother began coughing up words in reverse, and your eldest started sleepwalking into fountains, you knew something was off. They recovered, or so it seemed. Then came the dreams. You heard whispers at night, your name being called from inside the chest. You woke to find your wife standing over you, eyes blank, muttering about aligning the bloodline. You thought it was sleepwalking. You thought a lot of things that were wrong. One night, after you'd finally decided to move the chest to a safer place, like a cave or a volcano, you walked into the storeroom and caught your wife chanting in a low voice, hands on the scroll, with blue fire curling from her fingers. That's when you knew. She wasn't just curious. She'd changed. Fringe tidbit. Some versions of this story claim she had a secret lineage, descended from the alchemists of Babel, with a little jinn blood mixed in. Others say she was simply interested in power, and when power sang to her from an old scroll, she answered. You confronted her, loudly, stupidly. She smiled. That tight, terrifying smile people give you right before they drop a truth bomb. Your brothers hate you, she said. They told me so. That stung. Not because it wasn't true, but because you'd always hoped otherwise. But her eyes glowed faintly when she said it, which wasn't normal. You asked her what she'd done. She turned away. I made them see things clearly. The next day, the chest vanished, along with your brothers. You rode out in a rage, with barely time to saddle the camel properly. What followed was weeks of bad directions, bad food, and worse dreams. When you finally found them in the ruined palace, as mentioned, they offered wine. You drank. Big mistake. Huge. You woke up in the sand, alone, with one of your brothers standing over you. As a deer, he couldn't speak then. He just stared, eyes human and horrified. And somewhere in the rubble behind him, you found a charred robe and a pile of melted coins. The stag, your brother, nudges you now. I told you not to trust her, he says, chewing his cud judgmentally. But no, you said, she makes good stews. Historians still argue whether this story is a warning about greed, or loyalty, or just a really long passive-aggressive diary entry. But the one thing everyone agrees on? The chest was never found again. You sigh. Sand crunches beneath your sandals as you begin to walk again. The desert glows faintly gold in the early light, and your dear brother walks beside you, hooves kicking up ancient dust. Behind you, far beyond the horizon, a woman with fire in her hands watches from a high place. Her eyes narrow. The wind carries a whisper of her name, one you try not to remember, because this isn't over. Not yet. You don't remember the road back. Not clearly. It's all a smudge of sweat, regret, and sunburn. But you do remember arriving home, your house, once a palace of calm order and rose-scented fountains. now pulses with something darker. You swear the shadows shift faster than the wind, and the breeze carries a faint metallic tang, like copper coins and old magic. There's a copper pot on the hearth that hasn't boiled in days, and yet it steams gently, hissing your name whenever you walk past. Your wife is in the kitchen, stirring and singing a tune you don't know. It's a soft, eerie melody, nothing out of place, except it's in a language that doesn't belong in this world. You pause at the threshold. She doesn't look up. The soup she's making smells like cinnamon and something else, something sharp. Not poison, exactly, but not comfort food either. You step inside. You're home, she says. Without turning, her knife moves rhythmically, slicing dates into perfect halves. How were the ruins? You glance down at the bowl on the counter. Inside float pale green beans, a half-submerged pomegranate, and a single black feather. You're no wizard, but even you know that's not a recipe from any merchant's cookbook. I found my brothers, you say. She hums a note of mock surprise. Oh, one of them's a deer. She finally turns. Her eyes are calm, like still water that might hide a crocodile. That's unfortunate. You want to shout, to rage, but she lifts the spoon, tastes the soup, and says, "He always did love figs. Should have turned him into one." And that's when it hits you. This isn't your wife anymore. Or if it is, she's wearing her humanity like a coat, something she can shrug off whenever the kitchen gets too warm. You try to leave. She doesn't stop you. But that night, as you lie awake in the guest room, because yes, even cursed marriages still need awkward boundaries, you hear her whispering again. Not in the kitchen this time. At the chest. Yes, it's back. Sitting in the corner like it never left. Wood gleaming under moonlight that shouldn't reach that part of the house. You creep forward. The lid is closed, but faint warmth radiates from it. You lean in to listen. A heartbeat. Not yours. Historical fact. Many cultures throughout the Middle East believed magical scrolls and objects had spirits or guardians attached, sentient protectors of the knowledge they contained. Some even required feeding, like pets or disgruntled interns. The next morning, you devise a plan. Not to defeat her. You're not that bold. But to test her, you ask her to make tea. Nothing suspicious, just tea. You watch from the hallway, the way she opens her palm and lets steam rise before the kettle's even hot. The way the mint leaves curl, like they recognize her. Then you test something else. You invite a neighbor over. A harmless, nosy man named Musa, who smells like raisins and thinks every problem can be solved with vinegar. He sits. He drinks the tea. 2 minutes in, he starts reciting poetry from a region he's never been to. 3 minutes later, he walks out, eyes glazed, whistling a tune that hasn't existed in 500 years. That night, your dog whimpers at the door and then bites your ankle. You connect the dots, or try to, but the real confirmation comes in the form of your youngest brother. He shows up looking, well, not great, disheveled, confused, and yes, definitely part dog. He pants when nervous, sniffs food before eating it, and yaps when startled. And worst of all, he doesn't know he's doing it. I had the strangest dream, he says. I was chasing sheep, or maybe goats. Hard to say. You exchange glances with your dear brother. He remembers nothing. The stag shakes his antlers. His fleas remember more than he does. You want answers. But more than that, you want your wife gone. Here's where the kitchen plan comes in. She loves to cook. Always has. But lately, The meals have taken on strange shapes and stranger effects. You once ate a rice cake that made your ears ring with distant bells. The fig tarts made your dreams smell like burnt sugar and seaweed. So you cook for her, you prepare her favorite dish, lentils with caramelized onions, seasoned with stories and suspicion. But while it simmers, you add something special, something given to you by a beggar in the market, who smelled like sandstorms and knew too much about your life. Fringe tidbit: beggars in medieval tales are often jinn in disguise, or cursed nobles on side quests. This one claimed to be neither, just said he'd seen what your wife was, and gave you a powder that glowed faintly in the dark. Said it would show the truth, not fix it. You sprinkle it into her bowl. She eats, and for one breathless moment, her skin flickers. Not visibly, but like a mirage hiccuping. You feel it more than see it. Her eyes widen. Her spoon drops. And then she smiles. You think you're clever, she says. You do not. You are extremely nervous. And armed only with lentils, she stands. And with a flick of her fingers, the pot behind her boils over. You didn't light that pot. There's nothing in it. And yet steam floods the kitchen. You fall to your knees, coughing. When it clears, she's gone. Historians still debate whether this moment signifies her death, her transformation, or her return to whatever realm she originally crawled out of. But one thing is certain: she never came back. The kitchen remains scorched for weeks. You board up the chest. You burn the scroll, or try to. It doesn't burn so much as hum angrily and vanish. And your youngest brother, well, he still barks in his sleep. But at least he sleeps. That's when the three of you, one merchant, one half-dog, and one deer with strong opinions, set out to break the curses and untangle what's left of your lives. Because clearly, the adventure is only just starting. You leave the city in silence, not because there's nothing to say, but because there's too much. Your dear brother is bitterly chewing on a sprig of sage. Dramatic, as always. And your younger brother, still doggish in both posture and personality, keeps sniffing the wind and chasing moths that aren't there. Your house, the once grand estate that turned into a haunted cookbook, is behind you now. Its doors sealed, the chest entombed beneath stone, salt, and 7 whispered prayers. You don't plan to ever go back. The road ahead, dry, cracked, laced with the ghosts of old camel trails and dreams that turn to dust. You have no map, just stories, and a single goal: find the man who made the scroll, or summoned it, or accidentally dropped it, on his way to destroy the world. Whichever version is true, your best lead: the Isle of Ebony, a mysterious, heavily forested island where the alchemists of old supposedly studied in towers of glass and obsidian. Getting there, though, is another matter. You need a boat. So naturally, you start in a place that hasn't seen seawater in decades, a ruined port town called Tarf al-Nasr. Historians still argue whether Tarf was ever an actual trade hub or just a pirate's hangout with better-than-average architecture. All that remains now are leaning buildings, broken masts embedded in sand, and an inn run by a woman with one eye and 3 rules. Don't ask about the shark. Don't look at the shark. No pets, unless they talk. Your dear brother gets a free pass. Under Rule 3, your younger brother, still mostly human, but occasionally licking his own shoulder, gets you banned from the common room within 20 minutes. It's fine. You didn't like the soup anyway. That night, while pretending to sleep in the hayloft, you overhear something important. 2 smugglers, whispering over a dice game, talking about a ship. Not just any ship. A ghost ship, they say, crewed by half men, half fish, captained by a shadow with teeth. It anchors offshore at new moons. And tomorrow night, you guessed it, you go looking for it. You shouldn't, but you do. Fringe tidbit. Folklore from the Indian Ocean often describes sea spirits who take the form of lost sailors. They grant wishes, but their prices are abstract. Memories, shadows, the ability to taste cumin. Some even demand your story in full before they'll help. When the moon is a silver sliver above the water, you spot the ship. It glides without sails, cutting through fog that shouldn't exist. It smells faintly of honey and rot. Your brothers refuse to board. The deer snorts. I've seen enough cursed wood. Thank you. The dog brother growls at a conch shell. This feels fishy, so you go alone. The deck is quiet. Too quiet. But then a figure emerges, tall, wrapped in layers of kelp and silk, wearing a crown of driftwood and coral. No eyes, just the glint of salt-polished bone. You have history on you. It rasps. You nod. I want to find the origin of the scroll. It doesn't reply, just gestures behind you. You turn, and there's a mirror. A tall pane of moon silver, standing impossibly on deck, framed in barnacles. You look, you see your wife, younger, before the scroll, laughing at something you said. The memory's warm, too warm. Then the image shifts. She's reading, chanting. Her eyes darken. She doesn't change into something. She changes into herself. That's the part that hurts most. I need to undo it, you whisper. No. The sea thing replies, you need to understand it. Then the ship tilts. The world spins. And you wake up in the sand, choking on seawater and regret. Beside you, a glass bottle. Inside, a sliver of scroll. Just 3 words, scrawled in flickering ink. The Ebony Isle. You don't show your brothers the bottle. Instead, you walk inland to the old markets. There, you find a caravan leader named Dahlia, who agrees to get you 3 to the coast. For a price. She wants stories, real ones. So each night, you tell her a piece of what's happened. She doesn't laugh. She doesn't flinch. On the 3rd night, she shows you her ankle. A spiral tattoo, exactly like the glyphs on the scroll. She says her grandmother was a keeper of forbidden tales. Said the scrolls weren't written. They grew, like vines, or tumors. By the 5th night, she's teaching your dear brother how to read caravan trail signs. Your dog brother. He's learning to sniff out enchanted stones. You're just trying to keep your sand out of your soup. The coast appears at dawn. On the 7th day, it smells like salt and promises. You stand on the cliffs above the harbor, watching ships drift in slow, sleepy circles. The Isle of Ebony is out there, waiting. You charter the smallest, sketchiest boat in the harbor. It's called the Whispering Fig, which doesn't inspire confidence, especially since there are no fig trees on board. And it whispers even when there's no wind. The captain, a man with more rings than fingers, grins like he's already spent your coin. 3 passengers, huh? 2 men, a deer, and a dog? Technically, 1 man. You say, and technically, none of your business. He shrugs. Suit yourself. Just don't let the deer eat my maps. He's not joking. The boat creaks as you step aboard, and you can already tell this voyage won't be pleasant. The sea here is glassy and dark, so still it looks like you're sailing across polished obsidian. No waves, just silence and a distant hum, like a lullaby sung underwater. By nightfall, your younger brother has vomited 6 times. Your dear brother has eaten part of a rope, and you've come to terms with the fact that the compass on this boat spins counterclockwise. The captain doesn't seem worried. You're not headed east. My friend, you're headed inward. Inward? He winks. Islands like Ebony don't exist in the regular ocean. Mainstream historical fact. In classical Arab geography, especially from the 10th century polymaths like Al-Mas'ud and Al-Barun, the world was described not only in physical space, but also in metaphysical realms. Some islands were mapped by influence or myth, not distance. Ebony may have been one of those. The second night, you hear voices on the water, not from the boat, from the waves. Whispers that echo in languages you almost understand. One of them sounds like your wife. Another sounds like you, only older. Your dear brother refuses to sleep. Your dog brother tries to chase the moon's reflection, leaping from the deck and requiring rescue by fish that have no business glowing blue. On the third morning, you see it. Not at first. A shimmer. A smudge of green on the horizon. But as you approach, the Isle of Ebony reveals itself like a magician's hand, pulling back a curtain. Towering trees with bark as black as ink rise above pale beaches. A spiral tower leans slightly inland, its peak glowing faintly with green light. You dock. The captain demands double the fare. You pay. Reluctantly, you step onto shore, and the world shifts. It's subtle. The air is heavier. Your heartbeat feels slightly out of sync. Even your shadow seems delayed, like it's thinking about each movement before it mirrors you. I don't like it here, your dog brother says, scratching behind his ear. Smells like haunted lettuce. He's not wrong. You follow a trail into the jungle, your hooved brother leading. He's the best tracker now. Ironically, each step into the trees feels like you're being wrapped in velvet and static. Everything is too alive. The moss pulses. The leaves twitch at your passing. A vine wraps around your ankle and whispers, "Not him." Yeah. You yank it off fast. You come to a clearing with stone slabs arranged in a spiral. In the center, an old man, long beard, robes of woven bark, skin the color of midnight. He doesn't look up as you enter. He just says, "You're too late. You're already part of the story." "What story?" you ask. "The scrolls," he replies. "They all grow eventually. You opened it. You fed it." Historians still argue whether living texts were real in early Middle Eastern magical traditions or simply metaphorical warnings about obsession. Some scholars believe certain scrolls functioned more like spells you wore, altering your fate once read. Others argue they were elaborate hoaxes, cursed narratives, crafted to trap the curious. You approach the old man. He opens his hand. A copy of the scroll lies there, only now it pulses faintly, like it has a heartbeat of its own. "Not this one," he says. "Yours?" You nod. "Bad taste." He gestures for you to sit. Over the next hour, maybe day, maybe week, time gets fuzzy. He explains the nature of the scroll, how it's not about what's written, but who reads it. Your wife didn't fall to a curse. She fulfilled a pattern, a personality already halfway submerged in hunger for power, twisted by words that gave it permission. "You can't undo it," he says. "But you can finish it." "So finish?" He taps the scroll. Each one demands an ending. Otherwise, it spills into dreams, into places it doesn't belong. Like your kitchen, fringe tidbit. In some early Persian and Arabian texts, there are mentions of unfinished books that caused chaos in cities, inspiring people to act out the characters' last known motives. They were often burned, but that only sometimes worked. So here's your choice. End the scroll, or let it write more. Your dear brother wants to burn it. Your dog brother wants to eat it. You open it, and the jungle stills. The trees hold their breath. You read, and the scroll shifts. Lines of your story appear, written in curling ink that smells like cedar and ash. Your wife, your curse, the deer, the soup, the whispering kitchen. The old man watches. You see now. You nod. It's not just a story. It's a mirror. And right now, it's reflecting your indecision. So you take the stylus he offers you, and you begin to write. You write your brother's freedom, a return to their true shapes, flesh and sarcasm, loyalty and barkless nights. You write the scroll's ending, an honest one. No glorious battle, no dramatic twist, just peace, return, rest. As you finish the last line, the scroll folds in on itself, glows softly, then vanishes. The jungle exhales, the tower stops glowing, and your shadow finally lines up again. You don't stay long on the Isle of Ebony, not because it isn't beautiful. It is, in that surreal, slow-breathing way. Haunted libraries and abandoned greenhouses are. But something about writing the scroll's end changed the place. The birds returned. The vines stopped whispering. Even your dear brother looked slightly less existential. The old man offers no farewell, just a nod, and a quiet, cryptic, "Be careful what stories you feed next." You take the long way down the jungle slope. Your two brothers, fully human again, walking beside you in silence. And yes, your youngest still scratches behind his ear out of habit. It's a process. The boat is gone. Of course it is. Instead, a different vessel waits. Sleek, silent, carved entirely from dark glass. No sails, no oars. Just a single robed woman standing at the helm. She beckons, says nothing. You bored. She takes you without question, without fare, toward the mainland, but not the one you left. Midway through the journey, the stars change. Literally, they slide, rearrange. You see constellations that were banned in your childhood, shapes said to drive kings mad and cause goats to speak in tongues. One looks suspiciously like a chicken, holding a spear. Where are we? Your middle brother asks, pulling his cloak tighter. You glance over the side. The sea reflects stars that aren't yours. The boat's wake leaves no trail. You aren't moving on water. You're moving through time. Mainstream historical fact. Arab Islamic astronomers and navigators, particularly in the Abbasid Golden Age, 8th to 13th centuries, charted the heavens not only for timekeeping, but for navigation between spiritual realms. Star maps sometimes included unseen stars, conceptual or symbolic points in the sky, meant to represent metaphysical destinations. By dawn, land emerges, a red desert peppered with bone-white trees and ruins that seem to lean away from you. This isn't our world. Your dear now human brother says, "No." You reply, "But it might be hers." You don't say your wife's name anymore. Not because you don't love her, but because names carry weight in places like this. Saying them too loudly might call attention. The robed woman offers a hand and helps you disembark. Her touch is cold, not cruel, just distant. She mouths one word before vanishing into the fog. Kaf. You've heard that name before. Historians still argue whether Mount Kaf was a literal place, a metaphysical anchor, or simply a poetic symbol for the border between known and unknown worlds. Descriptions vary wildly. Some say it was a mountain of emerald. Others describe it as a mirror that reflects the soul of Earth itself. This land, it feels like Kaf. Everything here is too symmetrical. Hills mirror one another. Trees grow in mathematically perfect rows. The sun hovers, unmoving, in a dusky pink sky. You walk. Hours, or maybe years pass. Eventually, you find a house. Not just any house, your house. The one you left behind. with its cursed chest and too many spices. Only it's wrong. Twisted slightly. The doorknob's on the roof. The windows look inward. A tree grows through the chimney, with blossoms shaped like question marks. You hesitate, but you go in. The smell hits first: cinnamon, cloves, and something burned. Not recently, not even in this lifetime. You step into the kitchen. She's there, your wife, younger, laughing, stirring a pot. She hasn't seen you yet. Your breath catches. Then you realize she's on a loop. The same moment, playing over and over. She stirs. She laughs. She reaches for a jar, then vanishes. The scene resets. She's stuck. Your youngest brother whispers. You find the source. A mirror. Not just any mirror. One made of scroll leather and silver. Its surface rippling like water in a panicked dream. It shows not just one version of her, but dozens. Each one trapped in a different fragment of time. In one, she's reading. In another, she's screaming. In a third, she's writing something with ink made of your tears. The mirror pulls at you. Your dear brother. No. Human again, but still dear in his bones. Yanks you back. You go in. He says, you may not come out, but she's in there. You say. He shakes his head. She was. That's when you see the inscription carved into the frame. A story unfinished consumes its reader. You understand now. The scroll didn't just want an end. It wanted containment. The version you ended, the one on the Isle of Ebony, was just yours. But hers was never finished. Her fragment kept writing, looping, dreaming, and now it's begun to spread. You feel the pull again, a tug in your chest. You take out the stylus the old man gave you, the one that writes endings. Your brothers back away, knowing better than to argue. You press it to the mirror. It accepts your touch like wax under fire. You begin to write, not with certainty, but with love. You write her a way out, not into your arms, not into your life, just into rest, a soft field, a breeze, a moment untroubled by hunger, magic, or mistakes. And as you finish, the mirror stills. She smiles. The image fades. The kitchen returns to silence. Fringe tidbit. Certain Sufi mystics believed that dreams, especially recurring ones, were not just subconscious loops, but active battles between the self and the fragmented soul. To end a dream meant to heal a rupture in the self. It's possible your wife's mind was caught in such a loop. The scrolls spell an echo of that deeper fracture. You leave the house again. This time, it doesn't follow. Your dear brother places a hand on your shoulder. You didn't save her. He says, no. You reply, but I didn't let her keep suffering either. You walk back toward the horizon, which bends gently like the edge of a paper world. And in your pocket, a single strand of silver ink, still warm. You step through the horizon. Yes, through, not past, not over. It's like slicing a page open and walking between the words. 1 minute you're ankle deep in the dust of Mount Kaf's dreaming desert, and the next, squelch. You're standing in mud. Rain patters gently from a sky made of parchment. You look up. It's a library, a world-sized library, domed and infinite, with spiral staircases leading into clouds of ink and rustling shelves taller than mountains. No walls, just books, scrolls, spines, and ladders. The floor is leather-bound. The rain smells like old glue. This, says your dog brother, is either paradise or finals week. Mainstream historical fact. The famed House of Wisdom in Baghdad, active during the 8th and 13th centuries, wasn't just a translation center. It was rumored to house texts no longer readable by normal means. Some accounts, likely embellished, suggest that special recitations, dream rituals, or celestial alignments were required to access the full meanings. This imagined library of all may have its roots there. You wander through the stacks, your footsteps muffled by rugs made from stitched-together calligraphy. The books here aren't labeled in any language you know, but they seem to sense what you're looking for. One flutters open as you pass, an illustrated codex of talking coins. Another vibrates quietly, exuding the scent of betrayal and roasted lamb. Then you see it, a book with your face on the cover, not drawn, reflected. It's not a book, it's a door. Your middle brother hisses through his teeth. Please tell me that doesn't mean we have to go into your brain. You don't answer, because you're already reaching for the handle. The door book swings open. Inside is your memory, not as you remember it, but as it truly happened. A grainy, looping reenactment of every bad decision you've ever made, narrated in the dulcet tones of someone who really enjoys pointing them out. Your wedding day. Her smile, radiant and sharp. The moment you chose to open that scroll. The night you turned your brothers into beasts because you thought they'd stop you from saving her. And, yes, the soup incident, what you added nutmeg. Your younger brother mutters, "That's the real crime." But the memory doesn't stop there. It flickers, then reveals a memory you don't recognize. Your wife, sitting by a window, speaking to a shadowy figure, taking notes. She's not crying. She's not cursed. She's planning. Historians still argue whether the original tale of the third old man, yes, the one from the 1001 Nights, ever actually included a wife. Some versions emphasize the brother's transformation and omit the cause entirely. Others hint at a woman who orchestrated the events for her own liberation. The text shifts depending on who tells it. Your head spins. Could it be that you weren't the hero? Not even the victim. Just a piece. You okay? Asks your eldest brother, steady now in his human skin. You shake your head. No. But maybe that's the point. Because here, in the library of all endings, the truth doesn't come with closure. It comes with options. You look down. The book door is open to a blank page. A quill floats beside it. And once again, you're being asked to choose. Write your redemption, your retreat, your revenge. Fringe tidbit. In some obscure manuscripts of the Arabian Nights, readers were encouraged to copy their favorite tale by hand and then bury it beneath the threshold of their home. This, they believed, invited the story's fate to become part of their lives. Some were so afraid of what they'd written that they burned the text immediately afterward. You pick up the quill, but you don't write your own ending. Not yet. Instead, you begin listing the truths you now know. The scroll doesn't curse. It reveals your wife didn't fall. She chose a path you refused to see. The transformations were not punishments, but metaphors. Ways of saying you weren't ready to understand them as people. You pause. A note appears beneath your writing in glowing ink. Good. Now what? You sigh. Then, with a shaky hand, you write, "I forgive her." And just like that, the book snaps shut. Not violently, more like a sigh. The rain above stops. The shelves tilt. And you're falling. Not down, exactly, just away. When you land, it's soft. Grain, sand, something sun-warmed and ancient. You're in a courtyard. The air smells of dates and charcoal. And across from you stands someone unexpected. An old man, one eye, golden earring, holding a familiar leash. Your dog brother barks excitedly. "Hey, I know this guy. It's the first old man. Yes, that one." The one who started this whole story, with his tale of his wife and the deer and the magic. He smiles. Took you long enough, he says. I was starting to think your story would never loop around. Loop. You look behind you. There, your house again. The scroll. Your brothers. All waiting. You're back at the beginning. But something's changed. Not them. You're standing in your own courtyard again. But this time, everything is tilted, like someone rewrote the world using a slightly different font. The sky's a shade too lavender. The birds pause mid-chirp, like they're waiting for the next line. And the scroll on the table, it's blank. You don't approach it? Not yet. The first old man is watching you with that familiar glint. The one storytellers get when they know the twist and you don't. So, he says, gesturing with a twist of his beard. Ready to try again? You frown. Try what again? He taps the scroll. The part where you think you're the main character. Your brothers are behind you now, silent and watchful. The dog, the deer, the man again. Changed, but unchanged? Maybe that's the whole point. The scroll pulses, not like it's alive, but like it's breathing, waiting for something. You glance around your courtyard. Everything is where it should be. The fountain bubbling softly, the spice jars stacked neatly, the lizard on the sun-warmed tile, judging your entire life. Mainstream historical fact. In Middle Eastern folklore, especially pre-Islamic traditions, repeating a tale or returning to a place of transformation was believed to fold time. These loops weren't seen as failure, but as invitations to see with fresh eyes. Some mystics even believed that enlightenment wasn't linear, but spiral-shaped, always returning deeper into the same moment. The first old man sits down. His dog curls beside him. You think this story's about your wife, he says casually, or your brothers, or even your big heroic heart. It's not. You wait. It's about your reflection. He finishes. What you see, what you choose not to. Then he points, not at you, but at the scroll. You finally step forward. Its surface shimmers, not blank. After all, it says, once upon a time. You lied. Ouch. You blink. The scroll continues to write itself. Words unfurl like ribbon. You told yourself she needed saving, that they betrayed you, that you were doing the right thing. But the truth? You whisper it out loud. I was afraid, and the scroll accepts it. Ink soaks in, soft and final. Suddenly, the courtyard melts, not literally, just impossibly. You're no longer standing on stone and sunlight, but drifting through a memory you don't remember making. A wedding, but not yours, your wife's, to someone else. She looks radiant, yes, but more than that, she looks free. She dances with her veil undone, eyes laughing. No spells, no shadows, no scrolls, just her, fringe tidbit. In some oral variations of 1001 Nights, collected from Berber regions, women, especially the ones labeled witches or cursed wives, were later revealed to be scholars or rebels, using magic as a metaphor for escaping rigid gender roles. Scholars argue whether these versions were added later, but their persistence suggests deeper folk resistance encoded in the tales. You turn away. It's not jealousy. Not quite. It's grief. The kind you only feel when you realize someone was never yours to begin with. Not because of betrayal, but because they never needed what you offered. You drift back into your body. The scroll is still there, but now it's thin, weak. Its power has unraveled like a badly knotted turban. Your dear brother kneels beside it, touching its edge with a reverence you didn't know he had. We don't need it anymore, he murmurs. You look around. The courtyard fades. You're in the desert again, back to the beginning of all things. Only this time, you're not three brothers. You're three travelers. The journey ahead is unclear, but it's yours. Historians still argue whether the third old man's tale was ever finished. Some say it was deliberately left, open-ended as a challenge. Finish it yourself. But beware what you write. Others believe it was a lost chapter, a secret conclusion passed only through whispered dreams, or sand-written scrolls, erased by dawn. You stand, and you walk. No curses, no quests, just dust underfoot, stars overhead, and a long silence between the three of you that feels more comforting than any spell. You've forgiven, not just her, yourself. That might be the most dangerous magic of all. As you crest the final dune, the sky shifts again, not violently, just a gentle slide, like someone's turning the page on the horizon. And far ahead, a city, new, unmapped, waiting. You don't look back, not even once. The city waits. You reach its gates, just as dawn yawns across the sky, streaking the clouds with warm gold and sleepy lavender. Minarets shimmer like candle wicks, and the streets echo with the soft sweep of brooms and the murmurs of early risers. You're no longer certain how long you've been walking, but it no longer matters. This place, this city you've never seen before, feels like an answer you forgot you asked for. Your brothers are beside you. The deer nibbles calmly at a bush growing along the sandstone wall. The dog stretches, his tail wagging without purpose. The eldest, now man again, squints toward the skyline, where the sun peaks just above a mosaic dome, like it's nervous to begin another day. You step forward. The gates don't creak or groan. They just open, as if they were always meant to let you in. Inside, the streets aren't bustling. Not yet. But there's movement. Fruit vendors hums as they stack pyramids of apricots and lemons. A woman balances a vase on her head while chatting to a falcon. Children chase each other with palm fronds, shrieking laughter that bounces between the walls. You walk unnoticed, which is, frankly, a relief. You pass through a market where every item on display has a story. Spices packed in scroll paper, daggers etched with poetry, lamps that glow even in full sunlight. No one tries to sell you anything. They just work out, with eyes that suggest they've heard tales like yours before. Mainstream historical fact. Many real-world Middle Eastern cities in the medieval period functioned as hubs of oral storytelling. Damascus, Cairo, and Baghdad in particular featured hakawadis, professional storytellers who held court in cafes, public squares, and libraries. It's no stretch to imagine a city entirely built on stories, where every alley holds a narrative, and every shopkeeper is a narrator in disguise. Eventually, you reach a fountain. It doesn't look enchanted, which is, of course, exactly what an enchanted fountain would want you to think. You sit beside it, dipping your fingers into the water. Cool, still. And then, only when you're still enough, you begin to hear it. Whispers, hundreds, thousands, soft stories tumbling over each other like silk in a basket. Your dog brother cocks his head. Did that fountain just say my name? The deer flicks his ears and mutters, "Mine just told me I was right about the soup." You smile. The fountain doesn't judge. It remembers. Fringe tidbit. In Persian and Arabian folklore, water features, especially fountains, were believed to hold the dreams of those who slept beside them. Builders in ancient Samarkand were known to inscribe prayers under the basin before sealing them in, hoping the fountain would whisper wisdom back over time. Some pilgrims swore the fountains answered. If you asked the right way, a small girl walks by. She pauses, looks straight at you, then says, with no hesitation, Are you the man from the deer story? You freeze. Your brothers freeze. Your entire journey does that thing where time clutches its pearls and gasps dramatically. You nod. She nods back like that's normal. Then adds, "You're in the next one." Next what? She shrugs. "Next story. It hasn't happened yet." Then she skips off, leaving you with that terrifying little nugget of existential dread. You turn to your brothers. They look at you, then to the city. The streets are shifting, not crumbling or folding, just reorganizing, as if making room. There's something waiting, and apparently, you're in it. Historians still argue whether the structure of 1001 Nights was ever intended to be complete. Some claim it was designed as a narrative infinity loop, each tale containing the next, like a series of nested boxes, each with a slightly different version of the teller. Others say it was a clever survival tactic by Scheherazade herself. By keeping the story unfinished, she remained alive. You stand. The path forward is narrow. It winds between silken awnings and arches inscribed with stars. You don't remember choosing this direction, but your feet seem to know what to do. At the end of the alley, you find it. A tiny shop, carved into the lintel. Last story, next door. You glance at your brothers. The deer shrugs. The dog tilts his head. Inside, the shop smells of ink, salt, and dates. A woman sits behind a table. She's old, but in that timeless way. Storytellers are old. Her wrinkles have stories, and her eyes have sequels. She smiles. Took you long enough. You open your mouth. She raises a finger. No talking? Not yet. Listen first. And then she tells you a story. Not about you. To you. She tells of a man who loved too hard, who cursed without understanding, who sought redemption not through glory, but by sitting still and listening for once. She ends with this. And now, you get to choose the ending. She slides a paper across the table. It's blank, except for the words. Begin here. You stare at it, then pick up the pen. And just before you write, you look back. Your brothers are outside, laughing. The city hums. The fountain whispers. The air smells like new ink and old mistakes. You smile and begin. You begin to write. At first, it's just your name, carefully shaped letters that don't quite sit comfortably on the page. Then, you add where you're from, though even that feels oddly slippery now. Like your homeland belongs more to memory than to geography. You glance up at the old woman, hoping for guidance. She nods encouragingly, but says nothing. You keep writing. Your words flow slow at first, like honey in winter, then quicker. You tell the story of the merchant, the brothers, the spells, the deer, the dog, the scroll. You even write in that night, where the moon seemed to blink. You don't leave anything out, not even the shame. As you write, the shop changes. Shelves rise around you. Walls flicker, adjusting themselves to your narrative. A tiny kettle pours itself and sets out 3 cups. The pen you hold glows faintly. You're no longer telling a story. You're recording truth. And truth, as it turns out, is terrifying. Mainstream historical fact. Many scribes during the Abbasid Caliphate, on each 13th centuries, believed writing was an act of divine responsibility. The art of adab, which means both literature and proper behavior, linked storytelling with moral judgment. To write fiction was to flirt with prophecy. Some clerics even called authors accidental prophets. Outside, your brothers wait. You can see them through the lattice. The dog has found a pastry cart and is negotiating with the vendor, using what appears to be enthusiastic tail wagging and stolen figs. The deer is examining a carpet woven with stars. It shifts under his hooves like rippling water. You return to your scroll. You're on the part. where your wife was a gazelle, and you stop, not because it's painful, but because it's changing. You realize the version you wrote isn't true anymore. Or maybe it was never true. In your memory, she pleaded. In this version, she warns you. Her last words weren't, "Forgive me." They were, "You're not ready to hear the real story yet." You breathe, then write that instead. The old woman hums softly. Now you're getting somewhere. The parchment curls gently at the edges. Satisfied. Fringe tidbit. There's a centuries-old Bedouin superstition that if you record your dreams on camel skin parchment, the parchment itself can argue back. Some even claim their dream scrolls grew teeth. One particularly famous tale describes a scroll that bit its owner's hand until he rewrote a happier ending. You take a moment, sip the tea. The old woman finally speaks. Now, look behind you. You turn, and the shop is gone. You're in a vast library, not a neat one. This place is chaos. Stacks of scrolls tied with golden threads, bookies nailed to the walls, spines of leather and lapis lazuli. There's a stairway that goes both up and down at once. A monkey in spectacles scurries across a shelf, muttering, "No, no, not that page." At the center, a chair, and in that chair, her, your wife, not as you last saw her, not crying or afraid, just waiting. "Hello," she says simply. You nod. "I think I owe you a better story." She tilts her head. "You owe yourself one?" There's silence between you. Not awkward, just honest. The kind that happens when two people see each other clearly for the first time in 100 years. You approach. She holds up a hand. You need to know what really happened. And then she tells her version. How the spell was cast, not by her, but for her. How the merchant who cursed your brothers had been her teacher. How she tried to unweave the spell with the stories she whispered in her sleep. How you never heard them because you weren't listening. You sit, let the words fall. No defenses, no interruptions, just her voice, echoing softly in the chamber of ancient stories. Historians still argue whether the third old man's tale is an allegory for fractured truth. One theory suggests each of the three brothers represents a fragment of a singular person. Logic, emotion, and memory, trying to make sense of a shared trauma. Another theory claims the tale is incomplete on purpose, to reflect the impossibility of ever fully knowing another's story. She finishes and waits. You think back to the scroll, the spell, the deer, the city, the fountain. All of it. None of it. It's all paper thin now, easily folded or torn. You reach out, and this time, you don't ask her to come back. You ask if she wants to walk forward. She smiles and says, "Only if we don't bring the scroll." You burn it together, not with fire but with forgiveness. And just like that, the chair is gone. The library melts into sand and light. You're back outside, and the morning has shifted into golden afternoon. Your brothers greet her, like they knew her all along. You walk forward as four now, not perfect, but free, and somewhere behind you, the shop quietly vanishes, because you don't need it anymore. You walk forward. The city feels different now, softer around the edges. It hums with quiet approval, as if the cobblestones beneath your feet are whispering. Finally, your wife walks beside you, arms swinging loosely, no longer a deer or an idea or a regret, but a person, whole and vivid. She laughs at something your dog brother says, and your heart catches a little, not from pain, from relief. You hadn't realized how long you'd been dragging silence behind you like a cloak. You reach a plaza. At its center stands a towering statue, some great forgotten sultan carved from obsidian. His arms folded, eyes closed. Beneath him, an inscription in a language that doesn't technically exist, but your heart translates easily. All stories are true. Some just haven't happened yet. Your wife raises an eyebrow. Well, that's not ominous at all. You chuckle. Just another Tuesday. Children dart past, their feet slapping the stone, some pretending to be camels, others genies, one earnestly growling, "I am the vengeance of sand." He collides with your leg, apologizes politely, and rockets off again. Mainstream historical fact. In many parts of the Islamic Golden Age, public squares doubled as centers of knowledge and entertainment. Not only did scholars debate philosophy here, but jugglers, musicians, and storytellers also held impromptu shows. These shared spaces blurred the line between learning and leisure, fiction and fact. You sit at a low wall. Someone brings figs. No one asks you to pay. It's as if the city has adopted you. Your dog brother tries to flirt with a passing cat, who is not impressed. Your dear brother licks one of the figs and declares it emotionally average. Your wife closes her eyes and says, "This is the first time I've felt quiet in years." You lean back and soak it in. Then, a tremor, not from the earth, from the air, a low humming like the edge of a song you forgot you knew. The statue of the obsidian sultan opens one eye. You all freeze. It regards you not with menace, but with poetic curiosity. "Story walker," it says, voice like distant thunder over parchment. You swallow. "Me?" The statue nods. Your tale reaches its final chapter. You must choose the last turning. A scroll unfurls at your feet. This one is blank too, but there are only two spaces. Return to the beginning. Go beyond the story. The dear brother snorts. "That's definitely a trap." The dog brother says, "Ooh, I love traps." Your wife quietly says, "You already did the beginning." You stare at the scroll. Go beyond the story. That sounds suspicious, like stepping off the edge of a map. But return to the beginning, that's safe. Predictable, known, and very boring. You glance up at the obsidian sultan. "What happens if I choose wrong?" It smiles. "Barely. There is no wrong. Only repetition." Fringe tidbit. Some early Persian manuscript illuminations include hidden decision trees embedded in their borders. Scholars believe these allowed readers to choose which version of a tale they wanted to follow. An early precursor to modern interactive fiction. In one famous text, the hero either dies nobly or accidentally becomes a baker, depending on the reader's path. You stare at the scroll a while longer, then pick up the pen and tick the box. Go beyond the story. The plaza exhales. Wind rushes in. Not cold, not hot, just new. The scroll lifts off the ground and dissolves into blue smoke. The statue smiles wider now, and its second eye opens. For a moment, you see not stone, but stars inside it, swirling galaxies made of parchment and candlelight. You may go. The Sultan says, "But where?" It doesn't answer. Instead, the ground beneath you shimmers, like water with memory. The city begins to blur. The children vanish mid-laugh. The walls melt into pages. The sky folds into ink. You're becoming story. Or maybe just stepping through it. Historians still argue whether the Arabian Nights were meant as allegory, parable, or simply entertainment. Some believe Scheherazade's true aim was to teach her listener to listen differently, to recognize the pattern behind the tale, and then dare to rewrite it. Your wife reaches for your hands. So do your brothers. You take them all and step into the fold. There's no sound, no heat, no time, just stillness, and then you wake or arrive. Hard to tell which. The place around you is not a city. It's a desert, vast, quiet. laced with stars even though it's daylight. In the distance, a tent flaps in the wind. You're not sure how you know, but you do. Inside that tent is someone waiting, not to hurt you, not to save you, just to tell you another story, or maybe ask you to tell yours. The sand crunches softly under your feet as you make your way toward the tent. It shouldn't be this easy to walk across a desert. No heat waves, no burning wind, no sand in your teeth. It feels more like walking across a giant memory of a desert, one that knows you well and is trying to be polite. The air smells faintly of cardamom, and the dunes curve like calligraphy strokes made by someone in love with language. Your brothers fall in beside you. The dog, of course, is sprinting ahead, tongue lolling, occasionally burying his face in the sand for no clear reason. The deer moves carefully, as if each step must be weighed and voted on by an inner council. Your wife says nothing, but the set of her shoulders makes it clear. She's not afraid, just curious. The tent looms closer. It's strange, massive from far away, but it doesn't feel any bigger up close. The fabric is embroidered with symbols that shift and realign when you try to read them. Birds, stars, letters, and forgotten scripts. At the entrance, a single curtain sways. Even though there's no breeze, you push it aside and step through. Inside, it's dark, but not oppressively so. The kind of darkness that listens. A lantern hangs above, glowing with a soft violet flame. The floor is layered with rugs that don't match, but clearly belong together. You've barely taken 3 steps when you realize someone's already seated in the center of the room. So you, or not you exactly, younger, maybe, or older, eyes a little different, wearing robes stitched with stories. This figure gestures for you to sit. You obey. They smile and speak with your voice, slightly shifted, like it's been echoing through someone else's throat. You're ready, they say. You raise an eyebrow. Ready for what? To remember, they reply. Mainstream historical fact. In some Middle Eastern philosophical traditions, particularly within Sufism, the act of remembering, dhikr, is not just about memory. It's a spiritual realignment. The belief is that the soul always knows the truth. The body just has to be reminded. The figure claps once. A breeze rolls through the tent. Scrolls appear, hundreds of them, some blank, some half-written, some pulsing gently, like sleeping animals. One scroll unrolls in front of you. You don't recognize it, and yet you know it. It's the story of the 3 old men, the tale you told to the demon, the tale you lived. But now, as you read it, things shimmer, shift. The lines are fluid. Characters melt into new shapes. The demon is not always a demon. The brothers are sometimes women. The gazelle becomes a child. The merchant becomes a mountain. And in one version, the deer tells the story instead. You shake your head. This isn't right. It's all right. Your other self replies, that's the point. The scroll wraps itself up and vanishes. You're quiet for a while. Then you ask, so what now? The other you leans forward. You leave the story. Fringe tidbit. There's a lost manuscript called the Sandbone Codex, reportedly written by a blind poet who claimed he could only see the future. One of its surviving fragments reads, beware the day you become the tale's hero. Better, sometimes, to be the listener who walks away. You stare down at your hands. They look like yours, but older, wiser, tired, maybe, but full. Leaving sounds so final. The figure smiles again, more gently this time. It isn't. Stories never end. They fold, they echo, they wait. You glance around the tent. Your companions are still with you, but they're changing, The deer now has eyes like your father. The dog's tail is writing strange symbols in the sand. Your wife's shadow dances on its own. You're not alarmed, just awed. Will I remember this? You ask. Only if you keep telling it. The other you begins to fade, layer by layer, like smoke drifting upward. You want to grab their hand, say wait, but part of you knows they're not going anywhere. They were never separate from you. You stand, the lantern dims, the tent folds into itself like origami kissed by wind. You're in the desert again, and now it's sunset. The sand is blushing gold. A line of camels moves slowly across the ridge. The air hums with some forgotten lullaby. The dog curls at your feet. The deer settles into the sand. Your wife leans her head on your shoulder and murmurs, I like this ending. You smile, but let's not end then. Let's just pause. Historians still argue whether the third old man ever truly existed or was merely a narrative placeholder to delay Scheherazada's doom. One theory suggests the tale wasn't meant to resolve. It was meant to resonate, like an echo you can't quite trace to its source. And now, you feel the first tug. Not physical, not even emotional, just a soft, subtle pull toward waking. But not the ordinary kind. The waking up that happens when a story lets go of you. You lie back in the sand. The stars blink into place above, lazy and content. And you think, maybe next time, I'll be the one listening. You don't know how long you lie there. Could be minutes. Could be a century. The sand shifts beneath you, like a breathing animal, rising and falling with stories it's not quite ready to tell. The stars overhead wink conspiratorially, and somewhere in the distance, a flute plays a melody so old it might have invented sadness. Then, a bell, small, wooden, familiar. You sit up. There, standing exactly where the tent used to be, is a door. Just a door. No frame. No building. Just standing there, stubborn and a little smug, like it knows things. Painted on its surface in curling script are the words, "The end is just the middle in fancy clothes." You glance at your wife. She nods. The deer raises an eyebrow. The dog barks once, then sneezes twice for no reason. You step forward and touch the doorknob. It's warm. It smells like cinnamon and wet ink. When you turn it, the door swings inward, not to another realm, not to a palace of gold or a cave of wonders, but to a small courtyard. Cobblestones, olive trees, a low fountain shaped like a lion that spits water from its mouth with a tired but dedicated expression. You know this place, not because it's in the story, but because it's yours, your home. Mainstream historical fact. Courtyards were essential features of traditional Islamic architecture, not just for climate regulation, but as psychological sanctuaries, surrounded by high walls and shaded by foliage. These spaces were designed for reflection, storytelling, and familial connection. A protected world within a world. You cross the threshold. The dog and deer follow without hesitation. Your wife lets the door swing closed behind her, then immediately kicks off her sandals and sighs. Is it actually over? She asks. You look around. The world no longer flickers with narrative tension. The air doesn't hum with plot twists. There's no scroll tucked behind your ear, no prophecy carved into your skin, just jasmine on the breeze. You nod. For now. She smiles. Good. Inside the house, your house, you find a teapot that fills itself with mint. You find a cushion shaped like a crocodile. Callback unlocked. You find on the wall a painting of you and your brothers. Pre-transformation. All mid-laugh at a joke. None of you remember. You find peace. And yet, that tug again, that little itch, just behind your thought, telling you there's still one more thing. You step into a small side room. It's lined with shelves, and every shelf is lined with scrolls. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Each scroll labeled with a single word, told, but one space is empty. Waiting. You take out a new scroll, sit at the desk, and begin to write. Fringe tidbit. There's an obscure Andalusian manuscript that claims every storyteller has only one true tale. All other tales they tell are just fragmented mirrors, trying to remember the original. The true tale isn't about others. It's the moment the teller chooses to stop escaping and starts returning. You don't know if this scroll will be the true one, but it feels important. So you write, I was once a man. I had 2 brothers. We all made mistakes. But one day, we told the truth, and something miraculous happened. And as the ink dries, you hear footsteps. You turn, it's your younger self, the one who first bargained with the demon, the one who begged to be spared. He looks older now, but he's holding a scroll of his own. You smile. So, what's your tale? You ask. He shrugs. Same as yours, probably, but with more talking gazelles. You laugh. Historians still argue whether storytelling served as mere entertainment or something more subversive, an oral archive, a political act, or even a form of resistance cloaked in metaphor. In the case of the Arabian Nights, many believe Scheherazada's genius wasn't just survival. It was transformation through narrative. You pass your scroll to the younger you. He reads the first line, smiles, then opens his and places it on the shelf beside yours. 2 stories, told, and outside, night begins again. Not the ominous kind, not the kind that hides monsters or demons or fate, just soft, velvet darkness. The kind that lets you rest. Your wife calls from the courtyard. Tea's getting cold. You call back. I'm coming. And for once, you mean it. You don't linger. You don't rewrite. You arrive. The next morning, if that's what it is. Since time here seems more suggestion than rule. You wake not to sunlight, but to the smell of sesame bread, dates, and a kind of cheese that squeaks when you bite it. You stretch. Your bones feel like well-oiled hinges. Your mind, clearer than it's been in years. In the courtyard, your wife is already lounging under the olive tree, sipping tea and tossing crumbs to the deer, who now wears a little silk vest, like he's decided to dabble in philosophy. The dog chases its own tail, in confident, counterclockwise loops. You sit beside her. I had a strange dream. You say. She raises an eyebrow. Was it about the demon again? You've always talk in your sleep when he shows up. No. You say. Well, sort of. It was about remembering things that never happened, and forgetting things that mattered. She nods, as if this is entirely normal, because here it is. You watch the leaves move, the way their shadows draw shapes across the wall. You think of all the stories you've lived, all the versions of yourself, tucked inside tales, like nesting dolls, mainstream historical fact. In medieval Arab storytelling traditions, repetition wasn't lazy. It was layered. Recurrent characters, scenarios, and phrases helped the audience remember, but also deepened the symbolic meaning. To hear the same story twice wasn't to hear a copy. It was to see a reflection under different light. Later, you wander past the courtyard, through a crumbling stone arch, and into a strange little market. It shouldn't be here. There was no market yesterday, but today it buzzes with soft voices and gentle clinks. No shouting, no bartering. Just the mellow hum of existence. Every stall sells stories, not scrolls, not books, but items that contain stories. A cup with a crack that once ended a marriage. A slipper from a dancing girl who vanished mid-performance. A ring made from meteorite that gives bad advice, but only on Mondays. You lift a small glass jar, with what looks like fog sealed inside. The merchant, a man with too many teeth and a smile that belongs to someone else, leans forward, caught breath of a dying lie. He whispers, "Makes an excellent bedtime companion." You nod politely. Put the jar down. Move on. That's when you see him, the third old man, not in a mirror, not in a memory, in the flesh. He's trimming a bonsai tree with tiny golden scissors, humming something that might be a lullaby or a curse. His eye patch glints in the soft light. You approach. He doesn't look up, just says, "You've come far." You ask, "Am I finished?" He chuckles. "No one's ever finished, but you've come full circle. That's worth something." You crouch beside him. "What happened to you after the demon let us go?" He pauses. "I kept telling the story to anyone who'd listen. Eventually, it stopped being about me." Fringe tidbit. Some Sufi mystics believed in the concept of fana, or the annihilation of the self through complete absorption into divine love. They spoke of it not as death, but as the joyful vanishing of ego into the greater song of the universe. Perhaps that's what happens when a story stops being yours. It becomes everyone's. The old man hands you the scissors. You snip a single leaf. It floats gently to the ground and vanishes. "So now what?" you ask. He shrugs. "Now you rest. Or you begin again." The page is blank. Either way, you stand, say thank you. He waves you off like an old cat, tired of attention. Back home, your wife has painted the dog. Badly. It looks like a sausage with legs. And what might be a crown. You laugh. You all do. Then something shifts. Not the air. You realize you're lighter. Not metaphorically, physically. You're rising. Just a little, like the world has loosened its grip. You float 2 inches off the ground. Your wife notices, smiles. You always were too grounded. The deer nods sagely. Historians still argue whether the final stories of 1001 Nights were written to conclude the arc, or simply to loop it back again. Some scholars believe there was no final story, just a point at which the teller paused long enough for others to pick up the thread. You float a little higher, not soaring, not escaping, just hovering, like a truth that refuses to settle. You think of the merchant, the demon, the scrolls, the mirror, the tent. You think of the first night you told your story to stay alive, and how, somehow, it made you more alive than anything else ever had. You look down. Your wife gives you a small wave. "Don't be too long," she says. "We're making stuffed vine leaves for dinner." You grin, then drift upward into the soft light. No pain, no fear, just the slow, gentle hum of a tail reaching its exhale. You're not flying, not in the cape-flapping, city-skimming, heroic way you always imagined when you were younger and hadn't yet tangled with demons or made friends with wisecracking deer. You're just above it, above the noise, above the gravity. You hover in a golden sky that smells faintly of cumin and old parchment. And for the first time in a long time, your thoughts are your own, untethered by guilt or obligation, or the heavy pull of plot. Beneath you, the world curls into itself like a sleeping cat. You see the courtyard, the olive trees, the lion fountain that now puffs steam rings instead of water, just for fun. Your wife is hanging laundry, impossibly tiny shirts you don't remember owning. The dog is chasing a butterfly made of letters. The deer has started a book club. You smile, then turn to face the horizon. There, rising like the tide, is a staircase. Not one that leads to heaven, unless heaven is tiled in turquoise and smells like cardamom. This staircase is for re-entry, for people who've seen too much story and need a gentle slope back into their lives. So you climb, each step humming underfoot, each tile etched with a phrase you once said, or wished you'd said, or might still say someday. Mainstream historical fact. The idea of the storyteller's ladder shows up in Persian and Egyptian folklore. It's often metaphorical, a mental or spiritual path that allows a person to ascend through levels of wisdom, using tales as rungs. Some Sufi poets claim that each tale was like a key, unlocking a higher chamber of understanding. You reach the top, a small platform, a single chair. Sitting in it is you, not you now, not you then, but a version of you who looks like they've spent years watching the world without blinking. They pat the seat beside them. You sit. Both of you stare forward for a long time. No words, no rush. Then, the other you speaks, so. Ready to forget a little. You nod, because you are. Forget just enough to start fresh. To listen again. To laugh without worrying whether the punchline has already passed. You look down. The city shimmers below you. Stories wrapped in stories. People wrapped in longings. A bazaar where someone trades riddles for recipes. A school where the teachers only ask questions. A palace that blinks in and out of reality depending on how well you remember it. Fringe tidbit. There's an old Babylonian folktale about a storyteller who buried every finished tale in a clay pot, then buried the pot. If you dug up the right pot and cracked it open under moonlight, the tale would whisper itself into your dreams. They called it the second telling, and it was always better than the first. You lean back, close your eyes, let the hum of the world tuck itself around you like a blanket. The other you fades. You don't notice. You're too busy listening to the rustle of leaves, to the creak of old floorboards that aren't even there, to the way silence wraps around words just before you speak them. Because somewhere, not far from here, a new storyteller is opening a scroll. Their voice trembles a little. Their listeners lean in, and in that hush between heartbeats, the tale begins. Not yours, not yet, but soon, very soon. Wind down, 300 words. And now, as the last whispers of this tale dissolve into the stillness around you, you feel the weight slip away, like sand falling through open fingers. There is no need to hold on anymore. The characters you followed have settled into their rest. The demons have curled back into shadows, where they can do no harm. Even the courtyard, with its warm breeze and jasmine blossoms, folds gently behind your mind's eye, like a favorite page turned one final time. So, you're safe now. There's no twist waiting around the corner. No puzzle demanding to be solved. Just quiet. Just the hush that follows a story well told. Let yourself breathe a little deeper now. Feel the mattress beneath you, the slow rise and fall of your own chest. Let your limbs grow heavy. Let the room grow softer. Let the hush take root. Out there, the moon drips silver into empty alleyways, and the stars blink lazy lullabies to the rooftops below. And if you listen closely, just closely enough, you might still hear the echo of a tale or two, tucked into the folds of the night, like little fireflies of memory. But you don't need to chase them anymore. You've already heard enough. You've wandered far enough. Now, it's time to return to yourself, to let the world pause, and the dream begin. So sleep. Sleep well. Sleep deep. You're home.